The Feed.
The best Rob podcasting catchphrase ever. Libsyn's AdvertiseCast signs exclusive ad partnership with Vile Files, podcasts in YouTube Music, which gets us into YouTube plus podcasts mini Q&A. Budget audio gear to send to a guest interview to uplevel their audio. I'm really excited, y'all, about the Hindenburg 2 beta. More follow-up on Apple Podcast subscription questions. What's new for Apple Podcast in iOS 16.4? How are distinct listeners measured? Stats, mean and median, Libsyn Connect data, and AdvertiseCast CPM rates. Hello, I am Elsie Escobar, Director of Community and Content for Libsyn, and this is episode 238 of The Feed, the official Libsyn podcast, the podcast that takes it beyond how to podcast into keeping you podcasting, with podcasting tips and information for the everyday podcaster and taking you inside Libsyn. Our show is a community-driven show. You are a huge part. If you want to be part of the show, send in your 30-second promo. How do you do it? Attach it to an email and send it to thefeed@libsyn.com. If you don't have a promo, but you want your voice on the show, ask us a question or add to the conversation that you hear on an episode, send us voice feedback. You will hear quite a bit of examples of what that sounds like in this episode. You can also call us at 412-573-1934. Add that to your phone. Or you can use SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/thefeed. I'll be keeping an eye out for your email, okay? And now on to our main conversation with Rob Walsh, VP of Podcaster Relations at Libsyn, as well as my co-host right after the first promo of the episode, Tomorrow's Legends.
It's John Barrowman here, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends with Martin the Flash, Harley Quinn, and X-Force 11.
I'm so excited for the season because we're going to be talking all about me.
Good grief, we're not talking about you. We're going to be covering the final season of the TV show, The Flash.
And not only that, Harley, we've got Season 3 of Superman and Lois coming in March, and just maybe some new TV shows on the horizon for DC TV.
So all you superhero fans out there, be sure to check out Tomorrow's Legends as we begin our 8th year of coverage. So Gideon, get the Wave Rider ready to go.
Right away, Captain.
Hello, Rob.
Good generic time of the day, Elsie.
How was your first Mandalorian evening? No spoilers. I'm just saying, might as well continue on.
So the kids come home and I'm like, what's the homework situation?
Yes, totally.
And they're like, we know Mandalorian. And I go, well, what's the situation? And they go, and they both have tests today, Thursday, now the day after. And I go, how big a test are they?
Oh my God, look at you. You're hilarious.
So they were like, no, we can watch. So we ate dinner and watched as family. And then they went and studied for their tests.
Oh my God.
Teachers out there, stop giving tests on Thursdays now that Mandalorian is back. Give them on Wednesdays, give them on Fridays, but do not give tests on Thursdays. At least for the next, 9 weeks, 10 weeks.
Yeah, we're probably not going to be doing Wednesday. We'll be doing either Friday or Saturday nights and do our very best to avoid spoilers, of course. But
yes. It's impossible to avoid. It's almost impossible.
Almost, yeah. And I will do my very best, but that's the way it goes. Anyway, let's continue on today. And it seems like you have a new catchphrase that I am wholeheartedly behind. What is this? Please let me know.
Yeah, I came up with stole this one from something someone said on the eBay for Business podcast, and it is, create artwork like there is no description. Create descriptions like there is no artwork.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to steal it. Wait, what did they say? So wait.
They were talking about listing product. So they were basically saying, so they said, create photos like there's no description and create descriptions like there are no photos. And I said, ooh, but for podcasters, we can spin that around and say, create artwork like there is no description and create descriptions like there is no artwork.
I love that
Maybe I'd get a t-shirt with that, create artwork like there's no description on the front, and then on the back, create descriptions like there's no artwork.
Love it. I think that we need to have something like that for our team t-shirts.
Yeah.
Like something fun, but that's really great. Somebody that's listening right now, if your brain just exploded with the recognition of how brilliant this is, go ahead and go into your social media and give Rob a quote and tag him and at Libsyn, and we'll give you some nice social media love, because that's a good one. And moving on to some PR, because we must, for Libsyn. What is going on?
All right. This is a PR we had this past week, and the title of the PR was, quote, Libsyn's AdvertiseCast signs exclusive ad partnership with the Viall Files, the award-winning pop culture podcast hosted by Nick Viall, unquote. And here's a good part of that PR. I took out some of the yada yada. Sorry, Rich. But to condense it down.
Liberated Syndication announced an exclusive multi-year advertising deal between Libsyn's AdvertiseCast and the Viall Files, an award-winning pop culture podcast hosted by Nick Viall, a TV personality, best-selling author, and former star of ABC's The Bachelor. The Viall Files will leverage AdvertiseCast's full-service advertising platform, including Libsyn's automatic ads solution, to augment their host-read program with programmatic ad revenue and Libsyn subscriptions to build listener membership for its subscription-based ad-free content. Launched in 2019, the Viall Files is a weekly multi-episode podcast that discusses relationships, pop culture, and provides real and unfiltered dating advice. It has amassed over 100 million downloads with an average of 5 million listens per month. This series was nominated for a People's Choice Award in 2020 and voted one of the top 10 podcasts of 2019 by AP. On Mondays, listeners call in to ask Nick for advice on all aspects of their lives. On Tuesdays, during the Bachelor / The Bachelorette seasons, Nick and his team recap each episode. And on Wednesdays, he has one-on-one in-depth conversations with a special celebrity, pop culture, or expert guest.
I like what he does with his show. It's like almost a daily podcast. It's 3 to 4 times a week now. And each of those days is a little different format. So it's the same show, same host, but he changes up the format. So it's like almost segmented, but for different days. And they're long episodes. So I just thought it was a neat way that he did it. It wasn't the same thing each day, 3 days a week. It was different feel for each episode. I like the way he does that.
No, it's very, very smart. And it's also really great for somebody as a listener to be able to pick and choose, which I think is empowering for folks. I really dig that. Anyway, okay. From Rick Sala, Senior Vice President of Content Partnerships, Libsyn's AdvertiseCast, quote, Nick has built an incredible team of podcast professionals who understand their listeners and embrace the underlying principles of both audience and revenue growth. Our sales team is ecstatic to represent the Viall Files and are already actively introducing new brand and agency partners to the show, unquote. From Nick Viall, creator, producer, and host, The Viall Files, quote, I'm elated to bring The Viall Files over to the razor-sharp team at Libsyn. We have some amazing things planned to continue growing The Viall Files into an undeniable media brand. And Libsyn has built an incredible home to expand and flourish under, unquote. For more information or to advertise on the Viall Files podcast, please reach out to sales@advertisecast.com.
Nick, welcome to the Libsyn family. So it was nice to have him on board and working with his team and working with him. He's a really nice guy. It's been fun. And during the process of bringing him on board, he got engaged.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So it was
congratulations.
Yes.
All right. So as soon as we finished recording last episode, almost, there was a very giant announcement by YouTube, because YouTube over at OnFest, over at the Hot Pod Summit in Brooklyn that just happened, YouTube had a little bit of an announcement.
Yeah. And it's that YouTube is going to bring podcasts to YouTube Music. And I just want to say this, regardless of anything I say later on in this segment, remember, the more places podcasts are available, the better. So be everywhere. And I thought Paul Culligan had a good post on this. Right. So he comes from a very knowledgeable point of view and knows the history and everything. And then there was some coverage on 9 to 5 Google as well. Maybe not so much knowledge of the history. So those are two articles to see how they differed a little bit in tone and what they knew, and relying, Paul, again, relied on his base knowledge. But I want to say this. It looks like we also had some questions about this come in. So I'm not sure where these came from, but you read and I will try to answer here.
Yeah. So some of these are from, because we have our Volley group, and I did have a question there. That's where we got a couple of the questions for today. And then the other ones came directly to me from She Podcast. There's some folks that had questions about that there. So now the number one question here is, will YouTube create closed captions for videos cross-posted from Libsyn to YouTube? So those are the ones that are, with the static image and all that stuff.
Yes, it absolutely will. It absolutely does. I checked my episodes on YouTube and the closed captions are working fine. And that's been that way for a while. So that's not anything to do with the new announcement, but that just for, yes, absolutely, closed captions do work. And I checked multiple shows and that people are doing the conversion with the static image and it all works.
Very cool.
Now, not 100% accurate.
Of course, but nothing really is unless you put your hands on it, right? But alas, though, just as an FYI, folks, in the same way that Rob just mentioned this, that's also a really great way for you as a producer to sort of hack your transcripts as well, meaning cross-post it to YouTube, download the SRT file, because you can do that. And then you can use that. Now you have it, and you don't have to use another service. If you are doing it that way, you can. Not the most optimal, but you still have it. Okay. Second question. I'm curious about how they will see this working if someone already has a strong video presence on YouTube. One of my clients has a large YouTube channel where we are posting weekly videos of full interviews plus other content. Is there any reason/benefit to double up and also post audio only episodes on YouTube? In this case, this person also has a well-rated audio podcast with the same name as her YouTube show.
If you have full motion video that is the same content as the audio podcast, and you're already uploading it anyway, the full motion, I don't see a good reason to have both on YouTube. The main reason we tell you to put the static image audio up there, static image with the video for the audio up onto YouTube to start with, is for discoverability. Right. And if you already got the video up there, you don't need the discoverability. You're already in YouTube. So this is really, it's always really been meant more for people that didn't have video. So if you're already set with video, go. Now, I do know some people that I've talked with, especially Libsyn Pro customers who have unlimited uploads, that are actually uploading their video now through Libsyn, and because we can publish video to YouTube as well with motion, and they're doing that now so they can get the stats back into Libsyn. So they don't have to go into YouTube and check. So they upload the video and they only publish to the YouTube destination. Now you can do that in Libsyn 4. I don't think you can do that in Libsyn 5. But in Libsyn 4, I know a few people that are doing that recently, Pro customers. But I think that feature goes away in Libsyn 5.
All right. Now we have number 3. I'm interested in how the discoverability aspect would be covered. As of now, I find most of my clients' episodes with static images automatically published from their host, like Libsyn, have very few, minimal, almost zero views. I've heard with their update that static images are given equal weight to full videos, so I'd like to see that happen. Plus, how will the search be included in YouTube? If it'll be within the main YouTube or YouTube Music? I think I read that somewhere recently. And then within that, how it'll be rolled out to other countries other than the US. # I am Canadian.
This all caused me to go off on the tangents. This is my warning earlier. Just say it. All of Google, YouTube's interest in podcasting recently is perplexing. When you stop for 1 second and realize that 93% of podcast downloads are on mobile, and iOS is responsible for 5 to 6 times more downloads than Android, meaning the average iOS device consumes 25 times more podcasts than the average Android device. So again, I'm perplexed by all that YouTube is doing with podcasts. If Google is truly interested in podcasting, then they should stop toying with podcasting and just make the Google Podcast app native on Android. That will do far, far more for increasing their market share of consumption than adding podcasts to YouTube Music. as a consumer, do you remember when podcasts were part of Google Play? Yeah, neither does Google or YouTube. But it was there. I'm not trying to downplay YouTube, and what they're doing is just, if Google is really serious about podcasting, then prove it. Make Google Podcast native and Android. That, folks, will be the next and last inflection point in podcasting. The inflection point is not coming from YouTube. A lot of people get overly excited about video and think video is the next thing. And we've talked about it before. Video is not the next thing in podcasting. It's been there since the beginning. It will get you a few extra listeners. I wanted to say this. Having your podcast in there, and we tell you to do this with the static image, absolutely. Put it in there. And we've been telling you for 10 years to do it. It'll get you a few extra listeners. It's not going to be a lot. It's not going to be a game changer. It's not going to be an inflection point. But absolutely do it. Be there. But it will not be the next level change for your show. But Google holds the keys for that next level change, and that is making Google Podcast native on Android. Do you hear me, Google? Please. Please. I'm begging you. I'm begging you.
Oh, my God.
25-1, iOS to Android. You should be embarrassed.
My goodness gracious. Well, the thing is, this is how I see this. First of all, YouTube is just part of Alphabet, Google, right? It's like a much larger organization here. Google is doing its own thing. YouTube, it's doing its own thing. YouTube has its own CEO, and I'll put a link in the show notes as to what his letter to everybody is as to what they are focusing in on. They're really going big on narratives and communication to creators and wanting more creators to come into YouTube. So their bottom line is attached to how many people are creating content on their platform. Hence, put your stuff on YouTube. That's it. Why? Because they're making money off of ads. Mm-hmm. That's it. Part of it is that YouTube's desire to get podcasts into that specific ecosystem is really fueled by that, getting more people in those specific platforms and making money off of ads, because that's a huge way to do it. The second thing is that it'll probably make more people use their membership, right? To really step into, oh my gosh, I've been holding off on going premium or membership for YouTube to get all the extra bonus stuff. Now there's going to be these other things added to the mix. I want to have access to be able to do that, because I don't know if that's going to be accessible to everybody from the get-go in terms of podcasts. Now, one thing that we do have to really, really make clear, and I think this is why those questions what we just addressed are a little skewed towards YouTube versus YouTube Music, is because a lot of the coverage that we heard of this news was heavily clickbaited towards podcasting in YouTube. And so everybody's quick scan of those headlines was, oh my God, podcasting in YouTube. When really the announcement was that podcasting will be added, or podcasts are going to be part of YouTube Music, which is a totally different thing.
I just want to say that Downcast in 2010 was a better user experience for the end user to consume podcasts than YouTube is today. An aggregator app is just a better way for consumers. And all these plays and everything that people are talking about, getting people and consumers into there, isn't in the interest of the consumer, right? It's not.
But I have to say, though, that folks that are YouTube first, meaning people who just list, whose whole life is around YouTube, because there are people like that. It doesn't matter what I tell them or how. It's probably easier for you to listen to audiobooks in Audible. But get this, my kids are homeschooled, and there's a lot of things that we have a little homeschool co-op. And they have their reading stuff that, they get a book that they have to read and all this kind of stuff. And they get an option. They're like, hey, if you want to read the audiobook, here it is to YouTube. And the link is to YouTube. That's the option, right? You buy your book if you go get it from the library, or listen to your book on YouTube. And everybody has access to YouTube. And that's how the kids are listening to the audiobooks in a static image on YouTube. It is part of people's understanding, and it's free to be able to do that. Getting back now, though, to the whole YouTube Music experience, again, it's a music app. And if you don't subscribe to whatever subscription premium service, you can't have the screen disappear. Like, you can't go anywhere else when you're currently. I can't be strolling on whatever social media while listening to a podcast. I can't go to my text messages and respond to a text if I'm listening to music using YouTube Music currently, unless I pay for it. I don't know if that's going to be the case as far as I'm not sure what the announcement was. I seem to remember that they're going to allow playing in the background for podcasts, which is going to be, I feel, very important to be able to do that. I don't know if it'll be not for music and only for podcasts, but I can also say that when consuming Google Music without a subscription, the experience of that is very frustrating because there's an ad in almost after every single song. It's not I'm just going to set it and forget it kind of an experience. There's an ad all the time. So it is a monetization play all the way around, and it is YouTube Music. Now, there is the possibility to be able to tap a little button inside of YouTube Music to take you to the video on YouTube, which is kind of neato. I like that. I haven't been able to test that because I'm not paying for YouTube Music, and that's also a premium feature. So I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. But I feel at this point in time, obviously you're everywhere, like Rob mentioned, but your call to action, Rob, about getting the Google Podcast app to be native to Android, I do not think that is a call to action that Alphabet's Google is going to be answering to, nor the YouTube team, because that's not who's in charge of that. At this point in time, who is in charge of Google Podcasts? Like, where does it fall within the organization? Is it search? Like, what part? And bottom line, whatever adds to the bottom line of that company, monetization, search monetization, whatever, is what's going to be sold. Like, if you can't sell ads off of consuming, I would think like a native app for Google Podcast with built-in ads already in it. They would just have ads in it. That would be probably the only way they would really focus on it, is what I would think.
I can hope. I can dream.
Yes, I know. I was just looking at the org. I literally was. I was looking at the org chart and I looked down and I'm like, which team is the one that's in charge of developing Google Podcasts? I don't know.
You talk about the on air, and there's a whole bunch of sheeple that are running around together going, ooh, video, video, video. And they were the same sheeple that were at Podcast Movement in the summer. Ooh, video, video, video. And they were the same sheeple that a year ago were going, ooh, Spotify, Spotify, Spotify. Right. So there's this group, and they get all enamored with the shiny thing. And they'll talk about, we heard it at Podcast Movement this summer, and we'll hear it at Podcast Movement Evolutions again. Oh, video, video, video. Video's not new. Video's not new. It's not new. It's not new to the space. We talked about it before. It's just people that are in the space and they're trying for that quick buck, and they're looking for anything. They're desperate, and they jump on this video thing thinking that's going to be the next big thing in podcasting, but it's not.
The other layer to add to what you just said is that it has to happen fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday.
Yes.
Famous.
So it's a long play. It's a long play.
So it's
been a long play. We've seen steady growth in the space. Everything's fine in podcasting. We keep telling the folks that. Again, the next inflection point's not coming from this YouTube video. The next inflection point will be when Google makes Google Podcast native, because that's where the low-hanging fruit is, all the Android users.
I'm going to make one last comment before we continue on here. And the last comment is on that one person who asked about cross-posting and that they get almost zero plays with a static image if you cross-post from a service and all of this kind of stuff, right? Part of that process is me calling out the person that's doing this thing, right? In your strategy for very directed and strategic podcast growth, merely cross-posting because you can is not going to magically get you engagement in said platform. And that goes for insert Instagram, insert TikTok, insert whatever new tool is out there, especially for YouTube. So if you are simply cross-posting and adding stuff in there without optimizing your title,
bing, 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 bing,
optimizing your description, optimizing your graphic, possibly even being very thoughtful about the types of thumbnails that you're using to cross-post, and making sure your tags are appropriate, making sure, and here's the kicker, you're going to have to share the YouTube link to your episode also in your other social media platforms. All of that just to optimize for YouTube. And I can tell you that there's a team right now. We've been working incredibly hard, and I'm so proud of our creative team. We've just hit 1,500 subscriptions on our YouTube channel for Libsyn. It's taken us a year or more than a year to be able to do this. And it's taken a core group of people who are going in there on the daily, making sure we're optimizing titles, working with descriptions, thinking about thumbnails, having meetings a week, trying to figure out, mind you, we are doing actual videos, but I don't think that it's just because we're videos. I think you could also do a little bit of a bump when you're doing cross-posting, but you have to try. It's not going to magically, the YouTube search algorithm is not going to magically fix this for you. It won't. It just won't. If that's what you think, just put it on there. That's fine. We want you to be everywhere. That's great. But your expectations have to be, reasonable. So, all right. So we have a little bit of audio feedback here from Robonzo. Here we go.
Hi, Rob and Elsie. This is Robonzo with The Unstarving Musician. I'm sure my self-serving question has come up before, but I would like to know what mic and headset or in-ear gear you would recommend to guests who are interested in improving their audio quality. My Unstarving Musician podcast is interview format, with all my guests being in a remote office or home location. Unfortunately, some of them, my guests, use nothing more than the built-in mic and speakers on their desktop or laptop. As part of my workflow, I do recommend the use of a recording quality mic and headset or earbuds, but I'd like to make this advice more specific. What specific gear would you recommend that I recommend to my guests, knowing that most will be budget conscious? On a side note, my Unstarving Musician podcast just celebrated its 250th episode on February 3rd, 2023, and proudly did so having launched with Libsyn in mid-2017. We've been with you ever since, and I look forward to another 250 episodes with Libsyn. Thanks a lot for your time and the great work on your podcast.
Congratulations on episode 250, and thanks for the kind words. And of course, thank you for hosting with Libsyn.
Yes, thank you.
Per your question, I recommend the Samsung Q2U mic and any headphones from an old pair, from an iPod or an older iPhone is fine. The Samsung Q2U typically is in the $50 to $70 range. Last night I saw it at $55. And again, any cheap wired in-ear headphones should work, and most people already have those. But if you're making a kit to send out, you can get a 2-pack of the wired Apple earbuds for around $20. I personally like the Apple wired headphones, as you can talk and still hear yourself, so that your guests, if they're not used to having headphones over their ears, with just the in-ear ones, they're going to talk more normal volume. They're not in a normal inflection. They're not going to try to be raising their voice so they can hear their voice when they talk, as often happens with over-the-ear cans. I'll put links to both the Q2U mic and the 2-pack of headphones in the show notes for episode 238 from Amazon. But again, they're $20 and $55. So it's not a lot if you need to get something sent out to a guest, or you want your guests to go out and buy it for themselves, which I would recommend the latter. Send them the link. Here you go.
Yeah. I know that Liz Covart from Ben Franklin's World has a little kit that she sends over to folks as well. I'm not exactly sure what's in her specific kit, but she does do all of those things. And she's got her little box, and there's a system involved. So you have to think about what that system is prior to even just the hardware. How are you going to get that out there? How are you going to get that back? Because I believe she gets that stuff back, and there are instructions, I believe. And please, Liz, you can send in some audio feedback if you hear me talking about this. But I believe she also has a little printed thingy where she's got very clear instructions. So when somebody opens it up, it's got like pictures and put this here and stick that there. And here's the thing, because even beyond just sending them the mic, you also have to make sure they know how to stick it wherever it is that they're going to put it, because it's not easy, especially if they don't know about audio quality. They're not going to know what happens when you give them a mic. They're just going to be like, what? So I agree with Rob's takes. I do believe there's also I have to get the name for this though, and I should have written it down at some point. But there is a lower end headphones with a microphone attached that is not very expensive. So it's not like what I talked about last episode. I think it's less than $100. And that could be another choice, but I can't remember what that is. And it's a decent sound. It's not perfect, more like the Samsung Q2U. But do think about the process. Like you're going to have to print out steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and then make sure that you have provided for them the instructions of how to get all of that back to you. Take a lesson from the way Apple does it, which I think Apple does a fantastic job. Whenever they ask you to send things with them, everything's outlined in a nice little sheet and you can send it back. So, but in a pinch, even the ear pods are, to me, a wonderful solution for something like this.
Recently, we're helping Office Depot get a podcast going.
Oh, nice.
So they said, can you send us some links? And I was like, well, I better send them the links from the Office Depot website.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So I was like, almost going to send them. I was like, wait a second. Let me go see if they have the Samsung Q2U. And they did. I'm like, okay, here's this. So here's your link. Here's some headphones. And here. So I sent them links for everything that they had in their store. The only thing they didn't have was the Zoom H6 because they said they wanted to be able to do an in-studio recording of 4 people, but then also go on the road. So it's like, okay, so use Zoom H6. But I guess it helps when your own company has that in stock. So I'm sure they were able to get.
Absolutely. I think that that's something to think about for sure. And again, congratulations on making it that thus far. And I would also say the considerations on who you send this to, be thoughtful about that too. You don't really need to do it for everyone. And particularly just for some, like sometimes, I mean, especially with something like Connect, even if someone doesn't really have a proper microphone, I think you can get better audio. Mm-hmm. I do feel that one of the key components that you might tell whoever is actually location is more important in my book, because let's say you do send all this stuff and they are, in a warehouse with all kinds of echo. It doesn't matter what microphone they have. It's still going to sound crappy. Or if somebody is having a conversation with you at a coffee shop, you never know what a guest is going to do because they don't recognize how loud their environment is on a day-to-day.
You want to be in that conference room with the 4 square walls and nothing on them, right? And all that echo. I've heard that view. Oh, yes.
I mean, no, seriously, that's the worst. Yeah. And to think about it from that perspective is like, be in your office with carpet and no one else in the room, or go in your bedroom and sit on your bed and have a conversation with me. That's probably a better choice than sending him a microphone and have them be in a conference room. Exactly what Rob was saying, because it's really hard to get good sound. And the way conference rooms without any kind of treatment are these days, especially with the cement, sparse, clean vibe that most of these like super modern offices have. So yeah, not the best audio. But moving on and kind of continuing on the conversation around tech, I had an opportunity to test out Hindenburg 2 beta. I actually, and sadly, we didn't get any feedback on those people who check out my chapter marks. Hello, where are you? Please send them to me.
I'm just telling you, a lot of people don't use chapter marks. Listen, they're good for me. But anyway, I'm going to keep doing them, especially now because of Hindenburg 2 beta. Well, I appreciate that you do them because I go back to the show notes and I find things in the show notes from them. So thank you, Elsie. I'm the one person that uses it.
And me. It's you and I. It's just for us. Okay, first of all, I did not record or use Hindenburg 2 beta for any kind of recording and actual production. All right. My excitement around this specific product is primarily at this point in the, I guess, post-production workflow. Mm-hmm. John has been editing the show, which is incredible, and I am deeply thankful for him. And our workflow currently is we send him the audio, he puts the show together, does all the things that have to do with it. We give him notes and everything around what we need to put in with him. And then he sends me the uncompressed WAV file. That's what he does. And so once I get the uncompressed WAV file, I do the quality control, so I can give him any notes around what he sends to me. But usually what I do is I listen on Amadeus Pro. And as I'm listening for what we've done, what the episode is, I will start to use markers. I'll put markers for every single time that we are, anytime we're switching, right? Here's the promo, here's a topic, here's another. I'm doing markers as I'm listening, and then save that. The markers are saved, and then I import it into Forecast, Marco Arment's little applet, and that automatically makes the markers into chapter marks. And it's super easy. It's like, boom, there it is. And it compresses it into MP3. All right. So this last time around, I used Hindenburg for that. I pulled in the WAV file into Hindenburg. I did the same workflow with the markers. Now, what's really cool about Hindenburg, it's like a wonderful desk area with all of these little other bits that align with the workflow that I'm doing. So I can do the chapter marks now super easy. I can see them there as we're moving back and forth. I can go back and forth into the chapter marks as I'm editing, switching things around. It looks fantastic. I love it so hard. And it saves it into the ID3 tags. I can do ID3 tags directly into Hindenburg, so I don't have to go anywhere else. It's already there. But here's the clincher. You now have the ability to transcribe everything, Rob, and it just pops up at the bottom. Now I have chapter marks and transcription all in one wonderful space. And I can reread things. It is a game changer if you want to create content based on your long form content stuff that you've already done. It's so easy because it's all there. It's all there. So if Rob said something phenomenal and I need to create a really quick audiogram off of it, it is keystrokes away for me to be able to do that with Hindenburg 2 Beta because everything's there. Blink, 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 done, out. Again, the chapter marks and the transcription, you can export the transcription and you can edit the transcription and you can also edit the audio based on the words like Descript. So all of that in one tool.
Nice.
So to me, this is all the things in one thing. I don't need anything more. And there is a different pay structure that's coming up. It is going to be a subscription type of a model. Hindenburg used to be essentially you buy it and you get it, right? And depending upon either pro or not pro or whatever, you do the thing. Now there's going to be a subscription type of a model after it comes out of beta. So you do have to add that to your expenses if that's the thing. I actually feel this is absolutely 100% worth the money because it solves so many problems all in one. So I'm very impressed. I'm going to give it a go again and do that workflow. And I'm going to see if I can. Oh, and you can also import video to it too. So you can transcribe your videos if you want.
Nice.
Anyway, that's me. I'm loving it. And if you want to sign up for their beta so you can test it out, please do so. Current Hindenburg users are going to have to make a choice because the new pro features are the ones that are going to continue to be worked on. And that's going to be part of the subscription type of a model. And if you already own and have paid like a pretty hefty upfront fee for you to own the software, if you will, that's not going to be getting those updates. So just muddle on that in your own heads there. Okay, moving on to some more feedback. This is speaking of John, it's our own producer, John, leaving us audio feedback.
Hi, Elsie and Rob. It's your editor, John. And here's my question. Love Libsyn, been a customer for 10 years. I love Libsyn Connect. But one thing I would like is to be able to use it in the background while I'm using StreamYard to live stream to record my audio. I love Libsyn Connect. I love the quality of it. I love the there's no drift in it. It's amazing. And I haven't played with it that much, so I really don't know because it's hard to do for me anyhow. I would love to be able to use it to record my audio while I'm live streaming. Is this possible? Pretty, please.
John, thanks for the feedback and for the great editing. Per your question. Well, I was going to say, I can't say for sure for StreamYard, but we actually did do a test on that. I want to tell you what, I did another test yesterday with Zoom, and I was able to launch a Zoom session, then do a screen share of Chrome, and then set up and launch and record a Connect call, and then a Connect call recording was fine. in one test with one user. So, it was one test, one user. Take it with that, what it was worth. Now, StreamYard, Elsie, you and I did a little test before. And what we heard was there was a little bit of a warble in the audio that you were hearing. We don't believe it was in the recording. We didn't do recording. But it was from the being two mics. So when you muted the audio from one, either StreamYard or from Connect, from your ears, then it went away. And as a matter of fact, Connect, we found out, you can actually send the audio to a different speaker. So it can still be recording, and you can listen to the person via StreamYard, and you can send the Connect audio off to a mic or speaker that's not being used. In my case, I just sent it to my Yeti, and I don't have anything plugged in, so I didn't hear it. And then, Elsie, your voice got real clear.
And I sent my audio from Connect over to the Mac Mini, which had headphone jack connected to it, but that's not the one that I'm hearing in my own ears. So it went to a different output. Long and the short, we think it'll work, but we're not guaranteeing or recommending use two services together. But at least from two very preliminary tests, it seems to work at least between Zoom and Connect and StreamYard and Connect. So, John, if you test it out and record, let us know how it goes. And if you need someone to test with you, I'm happy to help out and see how good the recording sounds when both of those are running. Yeah. And I think that was the X factor that we did with Rob and I. We just set ourselves up for recording. We never actually went through the process of pressing record. So that's a different thing. Sometimes, I don't know if it works like Audio Hijack, because I know there were times whenever, I don't know if you remember back in the day, it hasn't happened in a long time for me for Audio Hijack, but there were times when everything was okay, like everything was set up perfectly on Audio Hijack, and then when you pressed record, it would like disappear out of my ears, and I was like, oh no, where did it go? And so something went wonky in that process. So we didn't press record, but we did make it work. It seems, in theory, like it'll work. But we just didn't go that one extra step. And John, again, happy if you want to reach out to me and we'll do a test in recording and see how it sounds. Or if anyone else wants to test with something else, we can happy to do that with you as well. And hey, and since we're talking about Connect, here are some updates, changes that just rolled out. One, there's a clearer view of the chosen microphone, which also now includes the ability to turn off AGC, automatic gain control. Thank you, Yvette, for that. The show title, where recording is happening, is visible in the top left of the recording area for the host. One page to schedule a call, either now or later, instead of there being a different page for each. Now it's one. Email alerting the host the files are ready for download, which I kind of laugh at that because it's ready so quick. I would never even get back to my email in time to see that notification, because when we're done talking at the end, Elsie, and then I hit stop and go, by the time I pick up my computer, bring it over to the desk, get it out of the studio, over to the desk, reconnect everything up, and then go and check, the recording's already there. It's there within a minute or a couple minutes. So, but you get the email just to remind you that it's there. And then scroll bar in the guest list is re-enabled for long guest lists. If you have a lot of guests, now there's a scroll bar there. Again, we've done testing. I heard up to 19 people in a session. So we don't know what the upper limit is, but we know it worked at 19. Again, thanks, Yvette and team, for the continued updates for Connect. And I'll say it again. If anyone wants to try it with a guest for their show, I would be happy to come on and talk about podcasting, The Mandalorian, college hoops, or how much I am in favor of the new pitch clock in baseball. Yes, I absolutely love it. Purist, be damned. Makes the game so much more enjoyable. I know that I just stepped into something there. I know. I'm going to get an email on that one. Rob@Libsyn.com. Oh my gosh. Flame away. Oh my gosh. Flame away. But I like the pitch. I'm sorry. I like the new pitch clock in baseball. I do. All right. And this feels like it's a great time for us to do promo number 2. This is the Wild West Extravaganza.
Each and every episode of the Wild West Extravaganza, we delve into the fascinating and often tumultuous world of the American Old West. From famous outlaws like Billy the Kid and Jesse James to lawmen like Wyatt Earp, Wild Bill Hickok, even trailblazing pioneers and frontiersmen, this podcast tells the true stories of the real-life characters who shaped this iconic period of American history. So saddle up and discover the true history of the American frontier. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's a journey you don't want to miss. The Wild West Extravaganza, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thank you for sending that in. And how are we sitting on promos? Need more?
Oh, let's keep them coming. Keep them coming. I have like one more episode that's covered, and I think that's about it. So come on in. Let's get them in. Let's get them in.
Be a good marketer.
I want promos.
Send in your promos. You know, I was trying to do the interesting new titles from the past 2 weeks now that I'm seeing more and more of the show's titles coming in on my email. And I thought, you know, this was the one that jumped out at me. It was called HVAC Sweat, Purge, and Roll.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, an HVAC one. We had one about power washing. So I was like, hey, let's do HVAC. Stay in the theme of trades. And I figured it was going to be just all about HVAC or something like that. And I read the description, and it is tune in weekly for a good laugh with Trent Parker, a.k.a. Mr. Fat Cheeto, as he interviews and tells funny stories from the trades. So yes, it's a comedy interview show around HVAC and other trades. So maybe he could interview the guy from the power washing podcast.
Oh my God. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Hey, when I'm looking for unique stuff, this is, these are the examples. I love finding these ones that are just like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. But I guess this guy actually is a popular guy on TikTok with his videos. So he's trying out the waters in podcasting. So welcome, Trent, to the podcast world.
Well, nice. And on another note, we got called out on Twitter. Did we not, Rob?
Yeah, it's my fault. I forgot. I forgot to put this in. And you want to read the tweet from
sure.
at Bravo Golf?
Yes. So here's the tweet. At Libsyn, this was unexpected to see, since Rob and Elsie always remind me to update copyright each year. And then he attached an image that we hadn't changed our copyright.
Yeah, I changed it as soon as I saw the post. But Brad, we were so busted. Yes, we forgot to update our copyright field. It is updated. And folks, this is your late yearly reminder to update your copyright to include 2023. If you've been doing the show for a while, maybe you put in 2009 to 2023 in that field. Or if you've only been around for a couple of years, maybe just write 2023.
Oh my
Yes. Update your copyright. Just your reminder. And thank you, Brad, for the public outing. Gentle reminder for us to do our reminder to everyone. Yes.
Okay. And now we are moving into some follow-up from some feedback that we got last episode. So this one is all about Apple Podcast subscription questions. So here is an email, quote, "Thanks for answering our questions on the show. If you have time, I have some follow-up questions before we pull the trigger on Apple Podcast subscriptions for some older content. 1, does placing episodes on Apple Podcast subscriptions remove them from other destinations? For example, if we put our first 150 episodes into the premium category, are they available using other players like Google, Spotify, Amazon Music, etc.?
Okay. If you make content premium only and use our publishing tools to get it up to Apple Podcast subscriptions, then it would only be available for paid subscribers, as it should be. We will take them off your feed in the public feed and then only make them available if you are calling it premium. So yes, it does take it down because we take it off of those feeds.
Perfect. And number 2, is there anything in the terms and conditions with Apple that prevent us from posting the premium content to our Patreon RSS feed?
No. You can actually and should also work with us for Glow, as an example. Glow and Apple subscriptions are a great match. It allows you to have your premium content out to Apple Podcast users, and then via Glow to all the Android and Windows users that cannot access Apple Podcasts. So, but yes, you can also do it Patreon. But please note, paying for Apple Podcasts does not get the user access in Glow or Patreon. And paying in Glow or Patreon will not get the user the access in Apple Podcasts. It's like paying for Netflix and wanting to consume content over on Hulu Plus. They are different services, and payments would be required twice if a specific user wanted access, say, on their iPhone and their Windows PC. Of course, there's always My Libsyn if you want to offer up a single payment option for iOS and Android, Macs, and PCs. You can pay once and users pay once, and then they can access everywhere. But that's only with My Libsyn. That's where we create the apps for iOS and Android. And that does require shows to be getting at least 1,000 downloads per episode within 30 days of release. If you really want that full, easy user experience, I think My Libsyn's about the only one that's going to give it both iOS and Android.
Number 3, if we don't like how the premium offering works out, can we pull the plug on subscriptions and put those episodes back in the free space?
Yes. But if you are not sure about this, and as a matter of fact, really anyone starting into subscriptions, make sure you only offer monthly subscriptions. Don't go out starting your subscription offering with yearly subscriptions. There's options for that, but don't. You should only, if you're starting out premium, you've never done premium before, start it with monthly. That way, when you cancel it, you don't have to try to refund. You don't have to hear people complaining about the fact that you canceled 3 months in, and for them, it was 1 month in on their 12-month subscription, right? So you might pull the plug thinking, oh, I pulled it early, but someone who pays for a year and they just happen to sign up right before you make the decision, not going to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not 100% committed long-term, 100% committed long-term, do not offer yearly subscriptions. Do it for a while before you even think about offering the yearly. Just do monthly.
Okay. And number 4, do you have any suggestions on how much content to place in the premium category based on our stats? How far back should we go before we draw the freemium / premium line in the sand? Thank you.
This is RH from Opposing Bases. So I'm wondering if his show if he's the one that's going to be mad at me about my pitch clock. Anyway, it depends on how many episodes you have or how evergreen they are. If you say have 200 episodes and they are very evergreen, then offer up 50 for free and the older 150 for premium, and keep it at 50 most recent for free, and all the older become premium. So the older premium count starts to grow over time. I've seen people go with 25 free and everything else older premium, but I personally do not recommend less than 50 free. I've seen the most success when people are like 50 and a little bit more. If you have 500 episodes, and maybe go 100 free and all older premium. The real question is, how many episodes do you really think it takes to get your audience hooked on your show, right? You got to give them enough of that crack to get hooked before they you got them. And double or triple that number, what you think it might be. And if you think it's going to be, they're hooked to my show in 10, well, you probably want to think about 30. If you think it's going to take 20, that's where that 50 comes in. But I personally, my recommendation, 50. That's where Mark Maron used to be, and others were like that as well.
All right, and then now moving on to some news that, again, it literally dropped after we finished recording. It was crazy. It is from Apple Podcasts this time. So what happened?
All right. So it was right after 2:37. As soon as we got done, I looked and saw the note that popped up. And it was this post in podcasters.apple.com. And you go down to the news, and Apple put out the post, iOS 16.4. What's new for Apple Podcasts? So here's what it is. Channels in library. So when a listener follows a show that is part of a channel, then that channel will appear in a new section of the library called, you guessed it, channels. Up next improvements, Apple said this, quote, up next will also include episode listeners have saved to their library and episodes that they play from shows they do not follow, unquote. So this means in having completed listening. And this means if the listener plays a part of an episode and they are not following that episode, it will now remain in the up next until the listener finishes that episode or marks it as played or removes it manually. There will be some other tools for listeners to better manage their up next queue as well. And that's in the, in enhancements for episode presentation. In the up next list, you can now tap and hold on the artwork, and then you get a bunch of options. Well, actually, you could do that before, but there's a new option, and the new one added is remove from up next. So there's a way to just remove it from up next. And then up next in Browse has been added to CarPlay, which is exactly what is stated. And then there's some help in stat side back end of things where Apple's more clearly identifying their user agents. Hopefully more on that part of it later in future episodes. But we'll see. This is for iOS 16.4. I have the beta on my iPad, which is where I do quite a bit of the podcast consumption because it's sitting on my desk. It's nice. So I've been playing around with it. There wasn't any hidden. I thought there might be something else hidden, but I didn't notice any other new features. The one thing I did notice, and I have to check on this one, is the background color no longer matches up with the artwork, but I can't remember if that was the way it was on the iPad or not. So I have to go find an older version on one of the other kids' iPads and check and find out if that's the case, that Apple's taking away that where the background color when you go to a podcast page was matched up with your show artwork. Hopefully not. Hopefully that's just an iPhone thing and not an iPad OS thing. So there we go. No, hold on a second. Before we go any further, I am going to go into Apple Podcast Support and I'm going to see if there's news. Nope. Okay. That was the last one. All right, Apple. I'm going to almost have to put a note in here now, like right before we get to stats, to just check Apple Podcasts to see, because they're releasing while we're recording.
That's right. I think it might have been released while we're recording. That's a trip. Okay. All right. This is our last little bit of audio feedback. Take it away, Andrea.
Hey, Elsie and Rob. It's Andrea from Podcast Envy and the Creative Imposter Studios, doing some stats research for my clients, and I discovered distinct listeners in the daily downloads as a metric I've never noticed before. My hunch is that if you have 1,900 IAB downloads and 1,200 distinct listeners, that means one distinct listener may have downloaded or played more than one episode that day. Thus, one listener equals more than one download. Or does it mean one distinct listener accessed the same episode more than one time or on more than one device or IP address? Help! What does this mean and how is it measured? And if you've already talked about this on the feed, thank you, but it was in one ear and out the other until I needed it, which is now. Thanks again. You're the best.
Thank you, Andrea, for the question. And I can understand this can be confusing, and I've had other people ask. And so if you had 1,900 IAB downloads on a day and 1,200 distinct listeners, here is what it means. Think of downloads like scoops of ice cream, and different flavors as different episodes. Most of your listeners will just consume one scoop of ice cream, but others will have 2 or 3 in that day. One chocolate, one Rocky Road, and say one black raspberry. Additionally, we only count a new scoop of ice cream for that listener if that listener has a different flavor. So, i.e., you're not going to count multiple times for a listener if they're consuming the same episode in that day. So if you ran an ice cream shop and you had 1,200 customers coming through the door, i.e. distinct listeners, in one day, you would expect to sell more than 1,200 scoops of ice cream, i.e. downloads. There are many, like me, that would be consuming, probably 3 scoops of ice cream. But back to podcast stats. With the IAB, a download is based on a distinct, i.e. unique listener and user agent combo, and that it's really a unique IP address and user agent combo filtered on requests for a specific file in a rolling 24-hour window, i.e. if someone starts listening to your episode on the way home from work, to your latest episode, and then finishes the next morning on the way to work, with Libsyn, that counts as one download. Libsyn does the more accurate method of counting downloads based on the rolling 24-hour window method, which also means our stats update every 15 minutes. So no need to do a big process once a day after that day's over. We're constantly filtering and processing and updating as the day goes on every 15 minutes. I hope that answers your question and hope it didn't make you too hungry, but ice cream is good. And I hope that analogy makes more sense on what the difference between distinct listeners and IAB downloads are.
Yep. Hopefully that makes sense. Let us know, Andrea, if that made sense. Okay. And now moving on to promo number 3. This is Glass in Session. How cool is that name for our podcast?
This is Glass in Session, and I'm your host, Val, a certified wine educator, lifelong learner, and shameless cork dork. Wine can be an incredibly fun and downright delicious journey. So wherever you are on yours, I'm here to help you fortify your wine studies and arm you with wine buying savvy. There's a Glass in Session every second and fourth Friday where we explore the fun and sometimes funny side of wine education. For more information, go to glassincession.com/podcast.
Thank you. All righty. That means stats time. And let us get into Libsyn stats. And this is the median and mean numbers to see how your show measures up, or your client show. The median and mean numbers are based on all episodes released on Libsyn, Libsyn Pro, in the month of January, with downloads measured until the end of February. On average, each file was about 45 days old. This is again per all shows hosted on Libsyn and Libsyn Pro. And the median number for January was 154. That's down a smidge from December's 156. Now, the adjusted mean average, where I throw out the top 0.5% and any files with 3 or less downloads, the adjusted mean for January was 1,511. That's down a bit from December's 1,562. 7.4% of all downloads for episodes released in January were in the 5K range or greater for downloads. That is that magical number some advertisers look for downloads for campaigns. And this was down a bit from December's 7.7%. And here are some numbers to measure against. And to put things in perspective, if your episodes are getting over 154 downloads after 30 days, you are better than half the shows. If you're getting more than 1,200, better than 80%, more than 3,500, you're better than 90%, more than 8,100, you're better than 95%, more than 20,000, you're better than 98%, and more than 32,000, you're better than 99% of the shows. For the most part, January numbers were down a smidge or a bit versus December numbers. And speaking of numbers, we got some new stats here, and this is from data from Connect users, and this might give you a little insight into podcasters and their guests, and thank you, Yvette, for allowing me to use this. And this is per the OS that was used. And the number of users and the number of sessions were statistically significant, over 250 for one, and way higher than that for the other. So here's where we're going to go with this. For the hosts, the podcasters that run the Connect account, right? These are the people that set up the call. 52.6% are on Mac OS, 43.1% Windows, with just 1.6% on Chromium, i.e. Chromebooks, and 1.5% iOS and 1% Android. So those are people that are initiating the call. Again, majority of the podcasters on Mac, not surprising. For podcast guests, this is the guests. The numbers change a bit. Windows is now number one at 45.3%, followed by Mac OS at 35.4%. Then iOS jumps up to 11.6%. Android jumps up to 5.1%. Chromium at 1.9%. And then Linux, yes, Linux comes in at 0.8%. Something I also found interesting is the average call duration. An hour and 22 minutes was the call duration, but the average recording, however, was only 52 minutes, meaning on average, there was 30 minutes of before and after the recording off the record chit chat, which Chelsea, I think is close to probably what happens when we record. When you think about it, right? We're always getting going and getting things in order before we do the record. So that makes sense. And if you're...
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I just need to see that number there. So plan about that. So when you're planning your recordings, understand that you need to have some chit chat and some green room time, right? They call it green room time with your guests, just to get that rapport going before you hit that record button. Average participants per call, 2.12 per call. It's kind of like the average number of kids people have in the U.S. And again, that comes from our Libsyn Connect offering. Thanks to Yvette for letting me share that data with the listeners. Just interesting little tidbits, some of which not surprising. See Mac OS number one. And then our AdvertiseCast team updated their monthly podcast advertising rates. These rates are denoted as cost per thousand or CPM. The data is derived from actual sales data from across the 2,900 plus podcasts in the AdvertiseCast marketplace. For February, the average CPM rate for a 60-second spot was at $22.04, down from January's $22.28. Note, this is the average CPM for a single 60-second ad drop in an episode. If an episode has, for example, 3 ad drops, it would be 3 times $22.04. From Dave Hanley, our Chief Revenue Officer, quote, although the podcast ad market remains resilient, we are seeing a couple of factors pushing rates down for us. Given the market uncertainty, we are working aggressively with our agencies and brand partners to offer them great value. In addition, our network has gone up market, representing several larger podcasts that carries natural rate compression, and those large audiences carry more weight in our calculations, unquote. The 3 highest CPM categories for December were technology at $27 CPM, education at $25, and then kids and family at $25 CPM. And speaking of technology, hello, Kim Commando. Welcome back to the Libsyn family. So excited to have her back on board. Again, average does mean average, with some shows having higher ad rates and some lower. Thanks, Dave and team, for keeping the space educated on where average ad rates are for the podcasting on a per ad read basis. And of course, if you are interested in advertising on a podcast, maybe to promote your show to a similar audience, please email me directly, rob@libsyn.com, and I can get you to the right people at AdvertiseCast, and they can help you grow your show or sell your product or, via podcast advertising. So again, email me direct, rob@libsyn.com, if you're looking to advertise on other podcasts. And then, where have we been section? I have nothing for me to report. How about yourself?
That is okay, Rob. It's all right. Oh my goodness. All right. So I mentioned last episode, we were at the No Pod Fade Guarantee for 2023 with Bethany Hawkins. If you have not watched that, please do. There are so much incredible knowledge that's shared in an hour for that. Put it in the background. We're on YouTube and check it out. You'll have fun with us. I promise. Then again, where are we going? For me, every Friday, I'll be there doing Fuzzy Logic for the next, I don't know how many more weeks, I think 7 more weeks, going live on YouTube every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So you can wake up with us way early on the West Coast. We covered AI, we covered disinformation and misinformation, misrepresentation, and also by the time you listen to this, we'd have talked about disclosures as well. And everything is done through the lens of the creator and legal, social, and ethical. So it's a very interesting conversation. We're also going to be doing our new live event in March, and it will be with Andrea Jones from Online Drea, and she's one of the most knowledgeable people about social media that I know. She's the one that I go to when I need to get the truth about social and marketing. She's a podcaster. She is a business owner that helps other companies put social media out, and she's an avid user of social media and creating for social. So she's got all kinds of really great stats and perspectives. And we are going to be doing podcasting growth focused event. And it's the top 3 things you absolutely should not do in social media and the one thing that you must do. So she'll be talking about the latest trends of social within the last 6 months. That's going to be on March 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you'll be at Podcast Movement Evolutions, huh?
Yes. So if you listen to it when it drops, I will be in the air traveling to Las Vegas. So I'll be there the week of March 7th to 10th at Podcast Movement Evolutions. Hopefully, folks, you will, if you're there, you come to my session. I'm doing a session, how to tell if those podcast stats are BS. Breaking down a little bit on what to look for your own stats to see if something's not quite right, or if you're looking to buy ads on a podcast, what to look for. If you're looking to do a swap with another podcaster, what to look for to make sure the person's not hoodwinking you. That's what I'll be covering there, plus a few other things. And then NAB show, April 15th to 19th, also in Las Vegas. And then She Podcast Live, June 19th in Washington, D.C.
Yay!
And
woohoo!
And we have a few others we go to in the first half or this year, and we'll mention them as we get closer. Folks, check your calendars and block off those dates now for the ones we mentioned. And of course, I always say that if you're looking for a job in podcasting, make sure you go to podcastingjobs.com and look for the latest post that we have up there. And then finally, don't forget to send in your feedback or promo. I mean, the feedback can be for anything we did or did not mention on this episode. You can record that feedback and email us thefeed@libsyn.com, or you can call us directly 412-573-1934. And finally, you can use SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/thefeed.
Woohoo! All right, folks, thank you so much for listening, and we will chat with you in a couple of weeks.
Ciao.
Bye.